Welcome to the final. Following on from Edgbaston, India have completed a 336-run victory, and my goodness me, it was overwhelmingly comprehensive result-wise, but it was equally comprehensively deserved. Stephen Harmison?
It was, Neil Manthorp. It was comprehensively deserved, I think, more than anything else. I think England were in the game at times, 200 for 5. I think they'll look at that point when they've won the toss. Bowled first is probably the big difference, and then the two new ball spells from Akash Deep when England came into batting at the time when they'd been fielding for quite a considerable time. So there are two things that I think from the test match and in reflection on where the differences were and why India won this game comfortably.
Okay, I'm very conscious that we should pay due credit to India. There's so many talking points from an English perspective, obviously, but Akash Deep's 10 in the match, that happens very, very rarely in an Indian victory, in England especially. 10 for 187, he's put the hard yards in. Mohammad Siraj 6 for 70 as well in the first innings. Those two in particular were able to make things happen that England seamers weren't. And I know you've spoken about the fact that they're different bowlers, but just say it again.
Yeah, I mean, they are different bowlers to Carson Tongue. Chris Wokes, I was expecting a little bit more, if I'm brutally honest, from Chris, in such a way that I think he got better as the series went on, summer went on last year. Got injured at the wrong time, had a short of a gallop, but got better as Headingley went on, and I expected him to be a little bit better here, and he probably didn't have the game that I was expecting with the ball. But you look at two bowlers, the run up, skiddy yaw trajectory, and they got the ball to move. They got the ball to move from a 5 metre length, which was very, very difficult for England to cope with. And I think we have to look at it reality. It's not an excuse. This is what happened in the game. England fielded for 150 overs and then had to go and bat for about 20 odd, where lead boots on, tired bodies. All of a sudden, 3 wickets down. I mean, if I look at the dismissals, I think they've worked the plans, or they've done some homework on Ben Duckett, getting him to play with a straight bat from a fuller length. Both innings that worked. Ollie Pope got a beauty in the first innings, got squares, got turned round. He could have been playing a little bit straighter, but I mean that's a small margin of. Your very first ball, he got knocked over, same as Ben Stokes got knocked over. Zach Crawley will probably take his 2 shots back. I think he'll probably take his 2 shots back. Yes, he's a big shot player and somebody who likes to get on with it at the start, but there weren't Zach shots, if you know what I mean. I think he got caught at backward point first innings. It was a half-hearted shot. That's not Zach. Zach, bang, if he hits that, if he goes hard at it, leans back and brays it straight to the fielder at backward point, and he has to take a thundering catch, then I wouldn't have a problem with it, because that's the way Zach goes at the ball. But he was a little indecision, and he got out. So there were the beauties about, from an India point of view, put pressure on England after India had put runs on the board and kept England in the field.
I don't know what to ask you about Zach Crawley anymore. We've been talking about him for 2 years. Let's talk about Shubman Gill, shall we? An aggregate of 430 in the Test match is the second highest ever behind Graham Gooch. He also erased Virat Kohli. A lot of people said, he's going to find it hard to fill Kohli's shoes and whatever, but he's already scored more runs in this series than Virat managed his Indian record as captain. So he's got 3 tests to go, and he's already passed Virat there. He's passed Virat's score for the highest in a Test match by an Indian captain. He's passed Sunil Gavaskar with the highest score by an Indian outside of India or the subcontinent. And the other thing that I just wondered whether you noticed as well as I did is that he, you don't want to be liked by the opposition, do you? I mean, and Shubman Gill he's a likeable guy, but it just seemed to me that he was a bit prickly with the England fielders and bowlers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was a bit more teeth there. I think you can show your teeth a little bit more when you've got 269 in the first innings. I actually thought, I saw a marked difference in the captaincy from Shubman. I think he's still got a long way to go. It was his team. I felt as though he was in charge today. I didn't feel as though he was in charge at Headingley, possibly because Jasper was on the field, and there's a lot of people making that, that should it have been Bumrah, should it have been Gill, should it have been Pant.
I got the sense this week it was Shubman's team, and he was the one that was making decisions, and he was the one that was driving the bus when making plans and changing bowlers and setting fields and looking at angles. Didn't get that sense when I was at Headingley, and I just wonder if it was something simple like scoring 260 in the first innings, because it can have a massive contributing factor. He'll have bounced on that field. He's walked off, standing ovation, brilliant, well played, fantastic. Talk about his innings, one thing. But when he come back on that field in the first innings, there was a spring in his step, a spring in India's step, and there was a togetherness and a group and a pat on the back for everybody that come. This is a young side, this is an energetic side, and they played like a young, energetic side with the ball in the field as well. And I think largely down to the fact that Gill, I thought, looked more in charge of what he was delivering here than he did at Leeds, and hopefully for him, he'll be better for it when he gets to Lords.
Let's talk about Jamie Smith then as well. Talking about run aggregates, I mean, we forget that he scored 84, 40 and 44 not out, won the game, hit the winning runs at Headingley. So he's now scored 356 runs in the first two tests. And broke some records as well, passed the gaffer Alex Stewart's highest score by a keeper for England in a test match, and only Andy Flower has scored more runs in a test match than Jamie Smith. So does he, I was going to ask you this in section 2, but seeing as we're on the subject, does he bat 6 now and move Ben to 7? I mean, my answer is no, but what do you think?
No, I still think Ben at 7. I don't think anybody would argue if Jimmy went up to 6.
He bats 4 for Surrey.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be idiots out there shouting for him to bat 3 because of that problem position. It's like, hold on, what else do you want him to do? And start spinning plates as well. No, this boy is talented. First time I saw him, I thought he was so calm and accustomed to playing this game that we all love in such a way which would suit Ben Stokes' teams, which is an aggressive and a positive manner. Anybody thinks getting caught on the boundary, going for his third 6 when there's 28 overs left in the day, and anybody wants to criticise that, I mean, that's nonsensical. It really is. I know there will be that will try and sort of say this team doesn't bat out for a draws. Yeah, you marvel in England chasing 371 on the 5th day at Headingley. You can't criticise this team playing the shots the way they do and getting bowled out, with 28, 26 overs to go. I thought Jamie Smith was brilliant from the minute he walked out on the field with bat in hand, hat-trick ball, against a side who has got their tail up, nonchalantly hit the ball down the ground for 4, and he never looked back till the end of the test match there. It was a brilliant performance from Jamie. His glove work's getting better and better. The only way this kid doesn't become one of England's all-time greats, wicketkeeper, is if like you mentioned, 3 or 4 years' time, when Ben does eventually go and when Joe eventually goes, that this boy gets elevated up to that number 4 or number 6 spot, and we come in with a different wicketkeeper batter. But for me, he's always been the real deal in my eyes, and it wasn't a case of giving him time. Unfortunately, people were always quick to judge on wicketkeeper being a wicketkeeper and not having a wicketkeeper batter, and the argument with folks. No contest here. This boy's here to stay, and it was just a case of him going out there and proving it, and boy, has he done it.
Right, last topic for this section before we move on to a few more talking points in part 2 is Shoaib Bashir. Figures of 5 for 386, having bowled 71 overs. 4 of the 5 caught on the boundary. We both loved the dismissal of Rishabh Pant in the first innings. We think he deserved great credit for that, caught long on. He has to bowl a lot in the first innings because of Ben Stokes' policy of bowling first. But I have to ask you the question, was more expected, and should there have been more from him?
The answer is yes, I think, because you're playing international cricket. You can't keep using the argument, he's a young lad and he's a project that's been developing. He's a project that's been developed during the West Indies series and the Sri Lanka series. He's a project that's been developed possibly in the New Zealand series, but he should be better. But at the end of the day, when you come up to these Big Ten Test matches against India and Australia, I don't think you can carry passengers. I'm a big believer that Shoaib Bashir will come good for England, given time and experience. But unfortunately, at this minute in time, you've got Bryden Carse, who's not been as good as what he was in New Zealand. You've got Josh Tongue, who's not really as effective against that top 6 as what he is with the tail enders. You've got Ben Stokes, who you don't want to be putting too much pressure on with the knee and the hamstring and everything that comes with it. And Chris Woakes hasn't bowled as well as he would like, or the usual Chris Woakes in an English summer in these first 2 test matches. Couple that in, then it highlights what you've just said, 5 for 300 and 5 for 380 off 71 overs. Then that highlights, your spinner's not, it's not so much not doing his job, but you're carrying him as a little bit as a passenger. England, with this bowling attack at this moment in time, can't afford to carry any passengers, not against Shubman Gill, Ravinder Jadeja and the players that are on show for India. So it is a concern. I don't see it changing. I don't see Liam Dawson coming in. There was mention that Jacob Bethel's been bowling spin at lunchtime and at tea time. That would be complete. I think that would be madness if you went down that road now. And England have invested too much. They've gone down too far. I think this would be the biggest. What am I trying to say here? From what England have done on the McCullum and Stokes, the loyalty and the faith and the belief they've shown in the teams, individuals, the likes of Crawley when he hasn't been getting massive amounts of runs, likes of Pope. They've backed him as vice captain and number 3. Same with Shoaib Bashir. There would be the biggest panic, I would say, that going in the McCullum and Stokes era going forward if they dropped Bashir. If they dropped Bashir, I wouldn't have an argument because his numbers are telling you he's not been bowling well enough. I just don't think he's bowling an attack at this moment in time, which is helping him too much. And the decision to bowl first, I thought he bowled really well in that first innings at Headingley and didn't get his rewards that he should have done. I think since then I don't think he's bowled anywhere near as good as he did then, and I think India have played him a lot better than they did in that first innings at Headingley.
And if Liam Dawson was 6 inches taller?
Well, if Liam Dawson was 6 inches taller, I don't think we'd be having we wouldn't be having the argument. But unfortunately, if you want to say that, there's about 15 bowlers who have bowled right arm spin, left arm spin for England, who might not even be playing first, might not even get a game of first class cricket because they were 6 inches smaller. So yeah, I mean, let's be brutally honest. If England were to make a change, I wouldn't be bringing in Jacob Bethel. I'd be bringing in Liam Dawson.
You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, and former England fast bowler Steve Harmison, as we continue to look back and digest and chew over the important moments of the second test at Edgbaston. Harmy, a lot of talk before the series began about these short gaps between test matches, particularly between this one and Lord's. 3 days often becomes 4 if it's a 4-day test match, but we've had 2 that have really gone the distance now. But provided that the physical recovery goes well and the fast bowlers can, actually I'm going to ask you about which fast bowlers will play at Lord's, but is it a good thing to sort of get back on the bike quite quickly? The Thursday's going to come around pretty quickly, and England don't want to spend too long over analysing and licking their wounds.
Yeah, England won't dwell too much on this. I think they'll know and identify the areas where they could have been better. Some of it is in their control, some of it isn't. I think the one thing I have to say, and it's not an excuse, nowhere near am I blaming the pitch for an excuse, but this team and the way they play and the mentality they have got, I mean, they can't play on pitches like that in England. I mean, they can't. I mean, that for me it's England's kryptonite. The lowness of the surface, ball not coming onto the bat. I mean, they can't play on them surfaces.
There's some seagulls showing you exactly what they think.
Exactly, and I mean, I'm not blaming the groundsman here. I'm not blaming Edgbaston. I mean, the way England set up, the way they go. I think Ben will never criticise that publicly, but I reckon behind the scenes he'd be raging at what he's got there. I think he's won the toss and bowl first because he's expecting a little bit more pace, a little bit more carry, a little bit more bounce, and a little bit more trueness for his batters to go and bat on a tier pitch, tier 2, tier 3 pitch with more in it from a pace point of view than that. So, not an excuse. Right, they should be able to play on any given surface, but I think that's a contributing factor. And licking your wounds going into a back-to-back test match. I mean, Akash Deep will bounce. I mean, he'll run to. Talked about Jamie Smith running to the ground and then going and getting 150. I think if you said to Akash Deep, "See you later," you're going to run to. He'll run there to make sure he's there for Thursday morning and won't feel any ill effects. You win back-to-back games, all of a sudden, I mean, there's no tiredness. The energy levels are still the same. you lose. I mean, it hurts, and little aches and pains hurt that little bit more. But I've got no worries about this England side. Never have done when they get beat, because they look at what's in front of them. Never worry about what's behind. It's about what's in front. And that, for me, is the beauty about the Stokes-McCullum stuff. It's about what's in front. And we'll take on the challenge, and we'll toss the coin at 11 o'clock. At 10:30, we'll pick a team that we feel is good enough to win at Lords, and we'll go and take on the game, what's in front of us. Might be different from a personnel point of view, but won't be a different game plan.
Just like every parent thinks that their baby is perfect and the most attractive, I think the groundsman here at Edgbaston did indicate to the England camp before the test began that he thought there would be pace and bounce in it. He said, "Don't worry about this pitch, it'll be fine." And I think England may have taken him at his word. I think Stokes would probably have bowled first anyway, but let's talk about the personnel changes potentially. Jofra has been bowling during the lunch and tea breaks. Not a lot, but a few overs. Michael Vaughan, interestingly, feels very strongly that Archer cannot possibly be ready to play Test cricket, having not played a Test for 4 years, having played one first-class game. And, I mean, nobody knows better than you how, you play... If you bowl 15 overs, that's the equivalent of between 10 and 12 kilometres. That's you know how conditioned you need to be.
I know.
So is he ready? And Gus Atkinson's back in the squad too after
the
injury.
problem. The problem you've got is you've got Gus, who does bowl well at Lords. You've got Wokes, who bowls well at Lords. You've got Archer, who burst on the scene at Lords when he hit Steve Smith on the head. I don't think they can all play. I don't think you can afford them all to play in such a way that Atkinson hasn't played for 6 weeks. Hadn't bowled a great deal going into that game against Zimbabwe, and arguably was injured going into that game against Zimbabwe with a hamstring injury. I get what Michael's saying, and he's 100% right to the point of body, right? I think Jofra, skill set, no problem whatsoever. Seen a couple of balls in bowling there. Skill set wise, his overs, maybe he's 1 to 12 in the first 35 overs of the contest. He will be flying, no problem at all. But England have come off the back, and Ben and Brendan might turn around and say, well, we won't be bowling 150 overs if we've got Jofra and he bowls well. Granted, yes, point well made. But you've got to factor in that if England go to Lords and it's flat and it's nice and sunny, which it is, that the long-term forecast is for it to be decent. I mean, if Jofra does 120 overs in the first innings, to win a Test match, you've got to take 20 wickets. And the hardest part of winning a Test match is that fourth innings, getting the last 5 wickets when you've got very little in the tank. Adrenaline only gets you so far. And that's my only concern with Joff. Great to see him back, first and foremost. Skill sets, not worried at all. 4 over spells, fantastic. Back that, not a problem. But unfortunately, we can't take him off the field. We can't sit him we can't sit him in the changing rooms, get him in an ice bath while everybody else does the field, and then wheel him back out for 4 overs. He's going to have to stand at fine leg. He's going to have to stand at mid-off. He's going to have to chase the ball. He's going to have to be on there for 6.5 hours, if and when first innings, which will be the longer innings, comes. It's a gamble for me worth taking. It is a gamble for me worth taking. Where we get to from that, I don't know. But I think at this minute in time, going into Lords, I think England, I would rather gamble with Archer than gamble with Atkinson. I'll gamble with Archer, I'll go with Archer and keep Atkinson possibly for Old Trafford when Archer can't play. I mean, he can't play, and then if it's 2-2, it's all eggs in one basket, one big effort, and you go to the Oval. That's potential minds what you go through. But look, listen, it's great to see the boy back. I was over the moon to see him training. Skill sets I've got no problem with. I think he'll be fine. I just think the longer the game goes on, and if it goes into Day 5 like we've had at Head and here, the ramifications of that going forward could be huge for Jofra, and that for me is the only thing I'm concerned about.
So just finally then, Wokes definitely plays, does he? He's got 32 wickets at 13 at Lords. He's got 100 as well. It's a ground he obviously loves and has performed at. Does that mean as much as a lot of people make out that, he's got such a great record at this ground, therefore he must play? But he's got that record when he was at the top of his game and bowling really well. And And I wonder whether that's still the case.
That's the problem. I think that's something Ben has got to really think about over the next 3 or 4 days. Going to Lords, looking at Chris in the eye and thinking, right, are you the Chris Woakes that averages 13 at this ground? Or is that zip not quite there? And I've got a bowler who can only bowl 4 overs in a spell, really, and Jofra, possibly 5 if he bowls a good one in the 4th. And me, as in Ben, who I don't really want to be bowling 40 overs in a test match. Can I afford to go in, not with another passenger, because that's totally disrespectful to Chris, but a bowler who might not be the one that I'm expecting that averages 13 here. And I think there's only Ben and Brendan can make that decision, and I think that'll be a gut feeling. I don't think that'll be made until, it wouldn't surprise me if England don't pick their side until possibly on the toss. I think this is one time they might have to take this deep in thought and try and get the right selection just before they go out and make that toss, because there's loads of them. You know, there's loads of them in that conversation. Does Tongue play because he cleans up tails, but he's not been the greatest at the top 4. Top there, the sort of higher up in the order. Does Cars keep his place? If Woakes doesn't play, probably Cars has to play, because you need that number 8 who can balance the bowling attack with the batting unit. These are things that they would have. Will England just go, right, we need 20 wickets, we're going to go all in, and we're going to go with Sam Cook, Jofra Archer, either Jamie Overton or Gus Atkinson. Anything could happen with this group, and you can't second guess them. If it was me, everybody in, I probably would back my experience, and I probably would go with Archer, probably Cook, and then I'd probably think about leaving Chris Woakes out and then pick him.
Very quickly, at the World Test Championship final, it was almost a month ago now, we had over 20 wickets in the first 2 days. The ball was doing plenty, and it flattened out, and by the 4th morning it was a batsman's paradise. So do you reckon we're going to see another chief executive's pitch at Lords? I mean,
I'd like to see the World Test Championship pitch. That was a good one for both bat and ball. And having spoke for the first 10 days of this contest, people are probably sick of my voice. So a nice 3-day would go down well in England on the sort of positive side of it. To be honest, I think all England want is a bit of pace. Give them a bit of pace. Give them a bit of life in the pitch, a bit of pace in the pitch. They wouldn't be bothered about any movement, but I tell you what, if they've got a bit of pace in it, they'll say, right, let's take India on that, and I think they'll be happy. Another chief executive slow one, and I think Ben might pull his hair out.
What's left of it. You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, alongside Steve Harmison, as we look back at India's magnificent series levelling victory by 336 runs at Edgbaston.